what are some of the strategies and initiatives that you've implemented to strengthen your recruitment efforts when it comes to physician recruitment? And again, what are you also doing to retain them, to make sure that they're staying, to, again, avoid those premium labor costs that we've touched on?
So one of my personal principles of physician enterprises is building a culture. And whether that's with, and it would be a combination of permanent hired physicians as well as locum physicians, I think you have to be intentional about the culture that you are building, and the culture of the physicians that you are recruiting. And so I've been intentional over the last several years in partnership with physician leaders that we have tried to build a culture that physicians want, that they choose to work here, that they choose to remain with us. And so when I talk about building a culture, let me talk to you a little bit about what I mean by that. So I'm looking for people who are team players, physicians that can collaborate with others, who are truly dedicated to patient care, who also are dedicated to patient experience. And of course, I'll say quality, that's kind of a given. But number one for me is really intentionally building that culture. Also, I would say we have a strong focus on physician well-being and engagement, and that effort is actually led by our physician leaders. Physician voices are really central within our service lines and in our medical group leadership. They have positions of significant influence in our organization. I'll also say we've worked very diligently to reduce administrative burden. In some of our practices, we've implemented, particularly primary care administrative medical assistants, to help with some of the administrative burden that we know physicians are facing. We were accredited by the American Medical Association with one of our pilot programs, which is called VASER, which is essentially, we have a team that is helping with MyChart messages when physicians are absent or not available. We recently launched a physician resource center, which is an online support for our physicians to help them navigate our organization. We're a very large organization, and sometimes physicians, where do I go for this, and where do I go, who do I talk to for that? We've also made sure that we have physicians in leadership positions to, again, help give us direction and feedback. I think the deployment of technology and artificial intelligence is underway. I think we're navigating through some of that. I think at the end of the day, I think we have to remember physicians want to be heard. And I think they also want to know who in leadership has the authority to solve their problems and answer their questions. And I also say, in my experience, physicians also want an answer. They actually, even if that answer is no, they'll respect that someone gave them an answer. And I, obviously explaining, the why behind the response. But those are some of the things that we've really been intentional about in terms of our recruiting efforts, and also how do we help to retain the physicians that we are fortunate enough to have a part of our organization.
Well, and I think you mentioned just something very crucial to a positive culture, which is transparency, right? And being able to have conversations, regardless if the answer is yes or no. There is transparency, which is so crucial. Teague, from where you're sitting, what are you seeing organizations do to strengthen those recruitment efforts, right? And again, what are they doing to retain physicians to avoid those costs?
Yeah, I think it all starts up front. Like, what does good look like from the very beginning when you go out and you're engaging in a search effort? So that alignment up front is critical. And it starts with, Chris mentioned culture. I think culture helps get the individual to seal the deal, right? And I think that's very important. But I will tell you, likely all of our individuals on this call everybody says they have a different culture, or sorry, a very good culture. So how do you differentiate your culture, right? Like, and then also how do you differentiate a package to attract someone, especially around compensation, expectations, and schedule. So it's very critical that you launch something viable so that it eliminates waste of time. You know, we have a lot of clients where, well, you know, we're going to go into this opportunity at the 25th percentile, and then 6 months later, there's no progress, right? Let's look at the market and let's make it competitive up front. And another thing that we find sometimes is regionally, when we have searches that we take on, there's that regional bias of, well, this is what our compensation and our benefits and so forth are in this region, so we want to be similar and like everybody else. That's the Northeast Territory, just as an example. Well, some of these candidate pools are so small that we have to go national and more broad. And to recruit somebody at a national level, you got to have an offer that's competitive at that national level, right? So that's something that will help speed up that time to fill. On the retention side, it's predictability matters. So balanced workloads, shared call, flexibility, and coverage support. But yeah, to land the plane on this, retention is one of the most effective strategies for reducing premium labor, because every physician you keep is a vacancy you don't have to cover later. But it all starts from day one when you launch that search effort.
Yeah. And again,